We're going to look, again, continuing to find equation of line. This time, they're saying they give us 2 points. This is on page 20. So if we go back to that thing I just wrote down, and I said I'd say this a lot of times, in order to write an equation of a line, you need 2 things. You need a point and a slope. So now we're going to this question, and they tell us that we're given 2 points. Do we have the 2 things that we need? No, we don't have the slope. We have a point. In fact, we have 2 points. We're like overdid it with the point part. We've got 2 points, but we don't have the slope. But you have a slope formula saying that anytime you have 2 points, you can find the slope. And then if you use the slope formula, then you have a slope and you have a point. Then you can either use y equals mx plus b or the point slope form to find it. So what does it look like? Right? Sometimes these are the 2 things that you need. Sometimes I write them out right at the top. Then I look at my question. Do I have any of these? Yes, I have 2 points. So when using the point part and you have 2 points, it doesn't matter which one you choose. You can look at them and say which one you think you like better. I don't know. Or you can just choose the first one because you always choose the first one. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So I could put -2, 3 or 2, -5. It doesn't matter which one I choose. Okay? Some things I sometimes do when I choose is I choose the one with less negatives. But they both had negatives. So I was like, oh. Then when I looked, I was like, well, 3 is a little bit smaller than 5. So maybe the mental math will be easier. I don't know. That's why I chose -2, 3. But it really doesn't matter. But we don't have the slope. But we do have a slope formula that says slope is rise over run. And again, like we did before, I would go and write x1, y1 over the first point, x2, y2 over the second point. So when I go to plug these in, y2 minus 5 minus y1, 3 over x2, which is 2, minus x1. Just work with integers. 2 minus a -2, that's 2 plus 2. That'll be 4 on the bottom. -5 minus 3 will be -8. Make sure you take your time with your integers, because if you make a small mental math error, it throws your whole question off. And I wrote the -2 in purple because I had to figure that out first. So now that you have your point and your slope, you can use either y equals mx plus b or the point slope form. From this point on, I'm going to just start alternating which ones. One time I'm going to choose one time I'm going to choose the other one. I won't do both every single time. I want you to know how to use both, but I'll switch between the 2. So this time I'll use y equals mx plus b. If I start off with y equals mx plus b, or maybe let's see. No, I'm going to start off with, I'm going to use the point slope one first, because I'll probably use y equals mx plus b in the next one. So the point slope formula says y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. Here is the point that I chose, so that would be my x1 and my y1. And I would get y minus 3, don't need brackets, equals m, which is -2, x minus -2. If I distribute the -2 to get rid of the brackets, and the question asked for general form, remember, what are the special things about the general form? There's two things you had to remember about the general form. No fractions. And what else? And A is positive. Is A positive right now? The number in front of X isn't positive, so I'm going to move everything to the left-hand side. How do I move it to the left-hand side? I'm going to add 2x to both sides. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That would leave me with 2x plus y plus 1 and 0 on this side. Question? This one, -3 plus 4, right? Those are like terms, so add them together. We get plus 1.
Wait.
Yes.
But then why would you put it inside instead of the outside?
What do you mean by inside versus outside?
Like, it says it equals
Are you in the last line here?
the top. Like 4 minus 1. Or 4 minus 3 is 1.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't it be like the equal side because that's where it is on the top?
Like the equal sign is right here. This is on this side now. So I would have a 2x, I have the y, and I have a plus 4 and a -3, which are like terms. It's plus 1. And everything on this side now would be 0. Does that make sense? I got this -4 because this -2 hit this +2 when you distribute it. And -2 times +2 is -4. When you have this -2 out front here, in front of these brackets, that -2 would multiply by the x, and it also multiplies by the 2. And that's called distribution.
Yeah, so -2 times
-2 times +2
Yeah.
is -4.
Yeah, but then don't you also have to do the other -2?
-2 times the x is -2x. Good? Any more questions? Great. All right, let's look at the next one. Write an equation of a line that passes through those 2 points. So again, what do we need to write an equation of a line? We always need a slope and we need a point. What do we have? We have 2 points. I would probably choose 1 and 4 because they're both positive as my point, but it wouldn't matter. But I don't have my slope, but my slope formula says rise over run. So if I label this as my point 1, x1, y1, and x2, y2, I could plug that into my formula. -8 minus 4 over -2 minus 1 gives me -12 over -3, which is +4. And now I have both the things that I need. I have my slope and I have my point. So now I could either use y equals mx plus b or the point slope form. The reason I like y equals mx plus b in this one is because they want the answer in y equals mx plus b. So if I start with y equals mx plus b, what do I know? I know the slope is 4, and I know that my point is 1 comma 4. That means when x is 1, y has to equal 4. And I can solve for b. I can subtract 4 on both sides to get b by itself. And I get b is equal to 0. So as a result, we can now write our equation. Y equals mx plus b. I now know the m is 4, and I know the b is 0. You could just write y equals 4x. If you wrote y equals 4x plus 0, it's perfectly fine. But the plus 0 doesn't need to be written.
So if the point was 2, like, it was like 2 comma 4?
If the point was 2 comma 4,
You would just replace the 1 and
you would, the x would be 2 and the y would be 4, then it would be a different, the equation would be different as a result. But if you chose the other point, the negative 2 and negative 8, when you plugged it in, you would still get b is 0. It wouldn't, so choosing the point doesn't matter, it will solve for the same value of b in the end. So you're not going to get a different answer if you chose the different point. But the math might be just a little bit different. Right? Because can you see, if I plugged in negative 2 here and negative 8 there, I would still get 0 for b. Okay. So now we have a graph. What do we need to write an equation of a line? We need the slope, and we need the point. Technically, we have to do work for both of these. Okay? Could you see from the graph that there's 2 points that there's dots on? You could label those 2 points. This one looks like it's at 4 over 2 up, negative 4 comma 2. And this one happens to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up, 0 comma 6. Again, it doesn't matter which point you choose. However, I would choose one of these over the other. 0 and 6 would be the one I would choose. Absolutely. Why would I choose that one? There's no negatives, but there's even more reasons I'd choose that one. What's special about that one? It's the y-intercept. In other words, it already tells us the b value. This will make this question even shorter. Okay? We still need m. Okay? You can find m using your formula, rise over run. You've got 2 points. You can find m by using the graph. Because can you see that it's rise over run? Can you see that you're going over 4, up 4? So without the formula, boom, I get m is equal to 1. I think that's quicker than using the formula. Again, formula's not wrong. You can make this x1, y1, x2, y2, plug it into the formula, simplify it. You will get positive 1 as well. But remember, slope is rise over run. So if you drew the lines between those 2 points, your run is 4, your rise is 4. And remember, anytime that your slope is going up from left to right, it's always positive. If it was going down from left to right, then your slope would be negative. So we've got the two things we need for our equation of a line. I would start on this one. I would use y equals mx plus b because I know m is 1 and I know b is 6. That was really easy to write the equation of a line in y equals mx plus b. General form, it needs to look like this. And again, the two things for general form, no fractions, and a has to be positive. Can you see that the number in front of x is already positive? So I would subtract y on both sides, and I would get x minus y plus 6. And it doesn't matter what side you write the equal 0 on, because obviously the left side, when you do y minus y, would be 0. So there is our general form. So I would say in this question we used a couple of shortcuts because we recognized a few things. We recognized the y-intercept. If you have the y-intercept, that gives you a shortcut in y equals mx plus b. And we also said, well, I have a diagram. I know that slope is rise over run. Maybe it's quicker to use the diagram to figure out the slope rather than the formula. That was another shortcut. Okay? So when we understand something, that allows us to make connections and do things quicker, which can be a good thing. Okay? Probably not in grade 10, but maybe in one of your math classes later on, you're going to write a test or an exam where you come across a really tough question that takes more time than you expected. So if you have other questions that you can save time on because you understand them, that can give you the opportunity to take more time for the harder question that you need. So that's an advantage that you can have. All right, let's look at the next question. It's another graph. We have 2 points on this one. We have -4, -1, and we have 0, -3. The two things that we need. Oh, thank you. This one is, look at this. What a save. No, it was -1. What? Is your graph different than mine?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one lower.
Yours is one lower?
Higher.
Completely one lower everywhere. Okay. Yours is here and here. I thought I wasn't seeing it right. We'll do yours instead of mine. So on your graph, you have 0, -4, and you have -4, -2. Is that correct? Okay. So we still need the two things. You need the slope, and you need the point. You can choose either point, but just like last time, can you see that this one is your y-intercept? So that one's going to be really helpful. To figure out your slope, again, since we've already got the diagram, between those 2 points, you're going over 4 and down 2. So rise over run would be 2 over 4. And I'm going to write it as 2 over 4 right now. I'm going to simplify it after. And can you see that it's going down from left to right? So we would also need to make sure that we include the negative. And after simplifying this, I would get m as -1/2. Again, you could use your formula, but I think using the rise over run is quicker in this case. There's sometimes on a graph that it wouldn't be quicker. Maybe your 2 points have decimals, and you're like, ugh. Or maybe they are very far apart, and you're like, ugh, I don't want to count that much. So then I would go to my formula, okay? But it is a good mathematical skill to say, when you look at a question, do I have more than one option? And if I have more than one option, which option might be better to use in this situation? That is a helpful skill to have, right? If you look at a question, you go, I don't have more than one option. Well, then it's pretty easy to decide which way you're going to go. You're going to go with the only option you have. But if you do have more than one option, then try to decide which one's better. And sometimes you'll make the wrong decision. I've done that many times. I'm like, okay, which of these options should I do? I think I should try this one. And I start working on it, and I go, this option sucks. I stop, and I go, okay, I'm going to try the other option. And I've even had math questions where I've been like, this option sucks. I choose the other one. I start working on the other one, and I'm like, this one sucks more. I have to go back to the first one. And sometimes you're like, this just overall just sucks. And you're just like, I'm going to quit for a while. And sometimes then you go back and say, maybe there was a third option that I missed that would be better than these two, because the first two options aren't very good. So here we've got both of our things already. We want it in y equals mx plus b form. And what's super nice about this one is we already know our m, and we already know our b value. So writing the answer is very quick. This one says both forms. There are 3 forms that we have learned so far, but almost never does a question ask for the point-slope form in the end. So when it says both forms, I would know that they meant y equals mx plus b and ax plus by plus c equals 0. What kind of line is this? Horizontal. How do we write horizontal lines? They're always y equals. Okay? Now, y equals, and if we count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, mine's at -6. Is it the same as yours? Yours is at -6? I'm just, because last one was off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this would be the answer. Now, how do you write that in both forms? Because that's how you write all horizontal lines. This y equals -6 is technically the same as writing y equals mx plus b. But the slope of a flat line is 0. It kind of makes sense, because if you think steepness, something that's completely flat is not very fun to downhill ski on. So if you go to slopes, you're like, you are just going to stand there for a very, very long time. Cross-country skiing, you can do slopes of 0. Downhill skiing, not very much fun if the slopes are always 0. In both forms, the ax plus by plus c form, you have to have one side equal to 0. So this is what it would look like if it was in that form. You just have to move the 6 over to the other side. We have no fractions, so that's good. And technically, there is no value in front of the x, because there would have been a 0. So then you would just leave it like this. Question? No? Horizontal and vertical lines are easier equations, but they don't necessarily follow the rules the same way. So that makes them a little bit tricky sometimes, because you don't see them very often, so it's easy to forget about them, and then you can sometimes run into problems. Now, as these questions get more difficult, all they start to do is make it trickier to find the two things that you need. But if you start every question that says find the equation of the line, if you start every question saying, well, I need these two things, that's always going to be true. I need a point and I need the slope. Then there's going to be hints in the question to find both of them. So a line has the same x-intercept as 3x minus 4y equals 12, and the same y-intercept as 2x minus 5y equals negative 10. So what does that mean? Well, the same x-intercept, that would tell me a point, right? How do we find an x-intercept? We plug in zero for y. So I would get a point by going 3x minus 4 times 0 equals 12. X is equal to 4. And that tells me the following point, 4 comma 0. So technically, I found a point. I still don't have a slope. How do you find a slope? Well, you either need another point, so you can use your slope formula, or you need something in the question to tell you your slope. What do they tell us? Same y-intercept. And you see that they told us a second point. How do we find a y-intercept? We plug in x equals 0. So finding the same y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. This will give me minus 5y equals minus 10. Divide both sides by minus 5. And that tells us this point, 0 comma 2. Now we have 2 points. Which point would you use for your point if you had to choose between those two? They're both positive. I would probably choose this one because as a shortcut, it's your y-intercept, so you would know your b value already. If I plug it into my slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I would get negative 2 over 4, which simplifies to negative 1 over 2. So now that you have a slope and a point, you'd either use point slope or y equals mx plus b. I would probably use y equals mx plus b because I have the shortcut. I know what b is already. So I could write that my equation of my line will be y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. But it asks for general form, and general form is ax plus by plus c equals 0. 2 things, no fractions, a has to be positive. Do we have fractions? Yes. How would we get rid of the fractions in this equation? Well, we're dividing by 2. So if I multiply everything by 2, it'll get rid of fractions. This side multiplied by 2, would be 2y. Negative 1/2 multiplied by 2 would just give me negative x, plus 2 multiplied by 2 will give me plus 4. Then I need to make one side equal to 0. I need the value in front of a to be positive. Right now it's not positive, so I'm going to move everything to the left side, add x to both sides, subtract 4 to both sides. My final equation then is x plus 2y minus 4 is equal to 0. It does that we want to do the x first, then the y, then the number. Yeah. Question from yesterday. Yesterday you had worksheet number 7. How many people did a minimum of one question from worksheet number 7 at home? Because see how this one has practice worksheet number 8? Yesterday was practice worksheet number 7. The question is, after you went home from school, how many people did at least one question on it? Okay. 2. Your homework.
Is it?
The big booklet of all the worksheets that we had prior to the break. That one.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, we have 20 minutes right now to start working on worksheet number 8.